Oh, yeah. Five-star. LSU. I said, they ain't ready for the LSU. No, they ain't ready for the LSU, huh? They ain't ready for the LSU. No, they ain't ready for the LSU. We the best in the league if you looking for talent. LSU going hard, but we beat Alabama, then we going out to Florida. Drown the Gators, everybody getting bucked when we step in the stadium. This the LSU anthem, you know it's a hit. You don't know another rapper two-step like this. See me screaming out the window, yelling purple and gold. I'm an LSU fan, girl, you know how we roll now. Back and back it on up, hey. 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 Way down in the back.
TA, we are live Thursday edition of the Tigers Avenue Show. Welcome back in. Had a great Monday kickback on football, get things back going, back rolling here in the Avenue. Really had a great time. Appreciate everybody who came and joined in. It was a great show, and looking forward to another great one tonight. Just to kind of give you a heads up on things to come. Tonight, we're obviously going to give you our last fall camp update, last fall camp practice report from what we've seen and read and heard. All things from that. We'll give you a little recruiting weekend preview because LSU has a couple targets that are going to be announcing their commitments this weekend. Some pretty big ones, if I have to say so myself. So we'll give you our thoughts on those recruits, maybe our predictions as well for where they might land. And then we will give you lastly and finally our offensive preview. We gave you our defense preview this past Monday. We'll give you a offensive preview. Good grief. Tonight. This next Monday, we will give you season predictions. We'll give you our thoughts on where LSU will be, where we think they will end up, how their season will play out. We'll give you all our thoughts and predictions on that. Obviously, we will recap the weekend because at that point in time, we will know the decisions that were made, the commitments that were made, and we'll discuss our thoughts coming off of those as well. And then the next Thursday, we'll give you a full USC LSU preview because it will be game week, and it'll be the last show before Zach the season opener. And I can't believe it's this close.
Yep. It's almost here.
I mean, man, we've got college football this Saturday.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Florida State, Georgia Tech in Dublin, Ireland, to kick things off 11 a.m. on Saturday. I'm pretty pumped about watching some football this weekend. I would really, really, really love to see somehow, by a miracle of God, Georgia Tech beat Florida State somehow. That would be
I don't know.
That would be amazing. So, anyways, Zach, fall camp is beginning to wrap up. Obviously, they did practice today, and they will practice Friday, and they will have a scrimmage in Tiger Stadium on Saturday. Unfortunately for us, the only media coverage remaining was this past Wednesday. So that's what we get the final look for fall camp. And Zach, seems like it was another competitive practice, another back and forth day, which honestly is what I love to hear. That's what I want to hear, that it's being competitive. Competitiveness and losing a rep and winning a rep, losing a rep and winning, like that only makes your team better. Iron sharpens iron. One man sharpens another. Obviously, we know that. And man, competition drives players to be better. It pushes players to be their best. And overall, it's just better for the team, Zach. It just really is. So I'm thrilled to hear that. Zach, what were some things for you that you've read and heard that really are sticking out to you from this final fall camp report, and some specific things, maybe some players, some key things that you were honing in on this past practice?
Well, as I mentioned in the last podcast, we haven't had any major injuries, but we did have an injury report from Brian Kelly this past Wednesday during his press conference, and got a couple of updates on some players. We know Jacoby and Guillory was dealing with a little nagging injury. We also know that Chris Hilton was dealing with the nagging injury. Wes Weeks, and I think there was one other Reagan that
Miles Frazier.
Yeah, Miles Frazier. Thank you.
Sage Ryan.
Miles Frazier, that was also dealing with a nagging injury. Luckily, the good news is that all four of those guys are going to be good to go when it comes to game time, as long as nothing else happens.
Yep.
They're going to be extremely cautious with them, held them back. So luckily, there hasn't, again, been any great injuries so far this fall camp, knock on wood. We are hoping and believing that there will not be any more injuries, especially significant ones, in these next week, a little over a week to go before kickoff. So I'm excited about that. The team's healthy and looking forward to, how all of that plays into a factor against USC, because obviously, strength and conditioning and the job that Jake Flynn has done plays a major role, especially for this team as you get later on in the season. But even here in the early goings against, a really good opponent in USC here in this first matchup, you want your team to be at full capacity, and that's where LSU's at right now. So that was a huge thing for me to hear from Brian Kelly, that those guys were okay. Those four guys were okay.
Definitely.
Outside of that, we continue to hear that the defense is improving. We continue to hear that other players are taking steps forward in their progression as individuals. And so overall, this team seems like it's beginning to finally gel. And it seems like there is beginning to become more and more clear on who are your starters and who you're going to rely on, as we have seen here throughout fall camp, and especially here near the end. I'm really excited to see, again, I know we talked about it the last podcast, but I'm really excited to see the progression of the two other tight ends outside of Mason Taylor, Kamorian Pimpton, and Trey'Dez Green. Sounds like they're going to be used a lot. Both of them have made phenomenal plays. Sounds like Kamorian Pimpton has really stepped up his game as far as being a blocker outside of just being a pass catcher. So I've been really looking forward to see what that's going to look like heading into week 1 versus USC. We obviously know that, speaking of injury, John Emery's been coming back from his ACL tear, and they have been working him hard and making him do all the things necessary to make sure that he can be a full go for this season. Yep. So making him cut, making him plant his feet, all those types of things. So just small things here and there, Reagan, as we wrapping up fall camp. Yep. But overall, excited and happy that the Tigers are looking strong.
You know, I was in lieu of some of the injuries, which I don't know if we should really call them injuries. Maybe some bumps and bruises is really what it is. Brian Kelly, saying
minor injuries, yeah.
Minor sprain, maybe a grade 1 hammy, bone bruise, some things like that, simple stuff that he said they would be ready to roll. This Saturday, essentially, is what he said. They would be ready for this weekend, barring any, further problems. But in light of that, it's always good to see who's the next guy up, right? Because inevitably, you're playing a contact sport. We all know it. Football inevitably is going to have injuries. You are going to have injuries. There's really just no avoiding it. It's the nature of the sport. So Sage Ryan was out, and one guy who was out all last year because of injury, literally did not even play a snap, was J.K. Johnson. And you kind of thought to yourself, and at least it was my thought last year, was what if J.K. Johnson was healthy? What would he have been like last year? How could he have impacted last year's team? I wouldn't say it would have been significant, but certainly that's a thought. When you think about how bad that defense was last year, you think of everything that could have possibly made it better. And that was one of those things is, what if J.K. Johnson was healthy? Well, he's healthy. Sage Ryan is dealing with one of those small injuries. And J.K. Johnson is the first one in behind Sage Ryan and has had a solid camp, a very solid camp. So that was really cool to see. J.K. Johnson kind of being the first guy off the bench for a corner. Like, you are going to play more than one corner. Like people are a little bit worried about Sage Ryan being the guy. Like there's going to be more than one, two guys playing corner all season long. J.K. Johnson's the first one in and had a solid day, really, really solid day. And so I was really pleased to see that and glad to see that he's making an early impact coming off his injury last year. He's full ready to go. Sage Ryan goes down, he's in. He's the guy. So that was
awesome. On top of that, Reagan, to piggyback off of what you're saying, we kind of saw on the opposite side of the ball the same thing with Tyree Adams. Miles Frazier goes out. We kind of expected Tyree Adams to be the next guy behind Will Campbell, but it seems like Tyree Adams is just the next guy.
He's the next guy.
He's the sixth guy. So we got to see that also these past practices as well. So, it's very clear that they are cross-training a bunch of different players.
There's no question. And Brian Kelly specifically spoke of that in his press conference about being ready and playing these guys because, like we were saying, inevitably you have to expect injuries or nagging, not even major injuries, but just things that can take a guy out of the game for a certain amount of time. And you've got to plan for that. And you're absolutely right. Even if DJ Chester gets hurt, Tyree Adams is coming in because it looks like Garrett Dellinger is your 2 at the center position. So even if DJ Chester goes out, they're going to slide Garrett Dellinger over to center, and Tyree Adams is going to come in. And, dude, Tyree Adams is your next guy. Like, this offensive line has been phenomenal. You have round 1 talent in Emory Jones, top 5 pick talent in Will Campbell, the continuity, 3 years of Miles Frazier, Garrett Dellinger, Will Campbell, Emory Jones. The great thing about this offensive line is Brad Davis has been killing it in recruiting every single year, developing players. He's been phenomenal. So Tyree Adams is going to be fantastic. So I'm not worried about, do you want one of those first 5 guys to get hurt? Obviously not. But it gives you a sense of comfort and peace knowing if a great, offensive lineman goes down, we've got a guy who can plug in and who has been fantastic at camp. Fantastic. And will probably start. I don't want to, act like I'm know the future or anything, but for all intents and purposes, next year Tyree Adams will be on this starting 5 on this offensive line because you're going to have a whole brand new unit. So that was obviously another thing I was going to mention. Tyree Adams, I mean, same thing with J.K. Johnson. It's good to see who's rolling in when guys go down. So that was good to see. Another thing that I wanted to discuss about this previous camp was kind of the energy of the coaches was heightened, I guess you could say. There was a bit of urgency. There was a bit of extra energy, a little oomph, and boy, it seemed to have brought something out of Sean Washington. Sean, however you pronounce it. And the dude had 3, 4, maybe even 5 tackles for losses. And in what has been mostly dominated by the offensive line, they have a team period where they just go offensive line, defensive line, and they pretty much just do inside zone handoffs, little handoffs, and it's just O-line versus D-line. Man, Sean was given the work, and Bo Davis, it's been going around on Twitter, and obviously as a pastor, I'm not going to repeat what Bo Davis said on this podcast, and Brian Kelly. They were fired up about what Sean was doing, and they let him know it. They let him know it, and Bo Davis was fired up, and so it's really good to see because we've been worried about the interior of this defensive line. And we're thinking, okay, Jacobian Gilrery is probably your best. He's your best. Gio Paez is a veteran guy. He's going to come in, give you some veteran presence. They're probably going to be solid. They're going to be solid guys. But after that, it's kind of like, okay, we got a few guys, but it hasn't been as good as we want it to be. It's not where we want it to be.
Yeah, the depth doesn't feel like it's there.
Right. It's encouraging to see a guy like Sean Washington, who's one of your transfers that you really want to be a big impact guy. I mean, the dude went from Georgia to JUCO, highly recruited guy. Like, he's a dude that you're like, okay, we need him to be a contributor. And man, if he can contribute in that way against an offensive line like that LSU has, that is going to be a great asset to the interior of our defensive line. And I that brings up kind of another thing, Zach. I really am looking forward to seeing this defensive line in game against another opponent. We all know that this offensive line is arguably the best in the country. And so, yeah, the defensive line has been dominated at times, and I wonder how good how good for them that's going to be.
Yeah,
when we get into the season, you know what I mean? Like, there's not teams that got 4 guys who've played 3 years together. There's not teams who have a Will Campbell and an Emory Jones bookend tackles that are just as solid as it gets and have been playing since their freshman year. There's not teams like that. In fact, there's no really other team in the nation that has that. Now, don't get me wrong, Georgia's offensive line has the talent. Bama's offensive line has the talent. Michigan's offensive line has the talent. But nobody has the continuity that LSU has and the dominance that they have asserted. I am curious to see how that will pay off for this defensive line. Because, man, you get punched in the mouth and punched in the mouth and punched in the mouth time and time again, you're going to get sick of it eventually. And I think this interior defensive line and Bo Davis, by the way, was getting sick of getting dominated. They look better, not just from an aggressive style of play, but their technique is better. Their technique is clearly better. They're able to shed blocks better. They're able to find the gap, fill the hole, and stuff the run like they need to on what seems to be a little bit more of a consistent basis. Whereas before, the offensive line was winning every single rep, no question. They have improved. They've grinded, and they've gotten better. And then when you line them up, Zach, against, say, South Carolina's offensive line, UCLA's offensive line, like, I like our chances at how good they may be.
Yeah,
So,
to at least be competitive and get some pressure.
100%, 100%. Another thing, it has become, Zach, and we talked about this a little bit last show. I should hold on to this for the offensive preview. I'll just say this. It's very evident that this team can run the ball. Like, the offense is going to be successful at running the ball. I don't think there's any question about that. And I think that this previous practice really solidified that in the way that they ran their offense. We really haven't, got like a, you get 11-11 periods and you see what's done in those 11-11 periods. But there was more of a simulation in this practice where it was like you had to have, they put Garrett Nussmeier in like you got to do a long sustaining drive here. And Garrett Nussmeier, dude, led this offense down the field to score a touchdown. At the same time, the defense had times when they stopped them. I mean, that's what I've been so excited about is this offense seems to have an identity. I think Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton are doing a fantastic job of doing what this team does well.
Mm-hmm.
They're playing to the strengths of this team. They are running the ball with Williams and Caleb Jackson. They're doing swing passes out of the backfield to the running backs. They're doing the bootlegs that we've talked about to the tight ends. They're running 12 personnel, 13 personnel. They're running some screens, and it's things like that can establish an offense, can give Garrett Nussmeier, who is a first-time starting quarterback. He has a start, but you know what I mean. He's got the reins. If you can establish some confidence with him, it can go a long way. And I think this offense is set up to where in every game we can win at the line of scrimmage and we can start moving the ball down the field, give Garrett some confidence to play loose and free, but not too loose and free, if you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Stay within himself and stay focused and do what needs to be done. And you have the receivers to rip the top off. You have the receivers to do that. You have the receivers to do normal things. Like we've seen lots of hitch routes and comeback routes and corner routes that they have been successful on all camp long with Kyron and CJ Daniels and Chris Hilton. And man, again, another player who steps up in the absence of another player. Kyle Parker had a fantastic day. In the absence of Chris Hilton. I know for a fact he had a 12-yard in-route pass. He had a touchdown catch on J.K. Johnson.
Yeah.
Kind of a corner route from Nussmeier to Kyle Parker, touchdown on J.K. Johnson. So he had a great day. He really did. And you think like maybe they have these nagging injuries. I think in all reality, if we're in season and it's an important game, I think those guys are playing. Like they weren't that serious of injuries. Maybe one or two of them sit out. Maybe the guys who had a boot on were sitting out a game. But some of them, I think, like Sage Ryan and Chris Hilton, who didn't have a boot on, probably are playing in a game if it's a serious game that day. But in light of they've been through the majority of fall practice, we need some guys to get some reps. Chris Hilton goes out, Kyle Parker comes in and really shines. That's positive, dude. Like, because you're going to rotate more than 3 wide receivers. Aaron Anderson had a great day as well. He did it too. So I'm just confident that this team is going to be. I'm not trying to say they're going to win every single game or anything like that. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I feel like this team is going to be a competitive team in every game we play. Every game we play, I feel like it's going to be competitive because of the nature and the style of which this team has been playing. We're winning at the line of scrimmage on the offensive side of the ball. And, man, a lot of games are won on the offensive side of the ball on the line of scrimmage. You think back to Alabama's dominance for so many years. They won it on the offensive line and the defensive line.
Yeah.
Our defensive line needs to improve. I think it will. It's not the best right now, but on our offensive line, it's dominant, and it can establish an offense that has confidence. And you can darn near say, we're running it, and you know we're running it, and you still aren't going to stop it. And when you get to that kind of place with this offense, you can do a lot of things and hurt defenses really bad. So I was very pleased with this camp, this practice, and pretty excited, Zach, about what they've been showing lately. Just the competitive nature is clearly there. Brian Kelly, speaking of competitive nature, the defense. Brian Kelly simply said, and he was kind of telling you something without actually saying it. You know what I mean? He said,
he likes to do that sometimes.
He said that good defenses, just having a good defense begins with players loving to play for their coach. Now, I'm paraphrasing exactly what he said. I know this is not word for word. I'm not exactly quoting him, but essentially he was saying it begins with them wanting to play for who they're who's coaching them. Hello. I think we know what he's saying there. I think we know what he's saying there. Blake Baker, and he did not hold back on this. I mean, he clearly, he had no problem talking about Blake Baker. Talk about Blake Baker having that energy, having that extra juice that they feed off of. And he said, playing defense just starts there. A want to, a drive, an energy, a grittiness, a nastiness. He said, then you work on the details and the technique and fine-tuning all of that. And he said, we have the want to now. We have the desire. And Zach, one statement that he made that I do want to quote verbatim, because when I heard it, I was like, praise God. He said, our secondary is no longer having these, quote, what the heck moments. What the heck? Why are guys wide open downfield? He said, that's not happening. We're playing great coverage downfield. Things you love to hear. Those are things you love to hear coming out of fall camp in light of what had happened last year.
When you get beat in a 50-50 scenario, but the DB had great technique and they were stride for stride there when the ball arrived, you can take that. You can understand. And that's a hat tip to the receiver for making a great play. When the receiver is running downfield and they're 10, 15, 20 yards wide open, nobody in the area, that is what is most frustrating.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, that's no longer an issue.
Yeah.
At least it seems that way here at fall camp. Brian Kelly is telling us himself that is no longer an issue.
Yeah. I mean, straight
Doesn't
up.
mean there won't be some coverage bust or some times that maybe a player makes a mistake or misses assignment, forgets his assignment. I mean, that's going to happen sometimes, but not nearly as much as frequent as it was last year.
Dude, it was
every game.
It was nauseating.
Every game,
how often it happened.
Possession is just rough.
Was it against Grambling last year that at the very beginning of the game, they were kind of torching us a little bit.
Oh yeah. Like I think they went. I think they went down and scored the first like 2 or 3 drives.
The coverage bust, and they had a huge play. Like, that's inexcusable. Like, what are we doing? Anyways, those are all the things that we're hearing that you love to hear. Competitive nature, a drive, a want to know what the heck's. Guys who are stepping up, filling in, and that are having great days.
Yeah.
That's the makeup of a great football team. I'm not saying we're a championship level team, but I think we're going to be a solid football team this year. If anything, we're going to be competitive, balanced, and a very solid team. So looking forward to, seeing more of it. I just want us to be on the field tomorrow. So
I know.
I can't wait. I'm itching for it, man. I'm itching for it. So, Zach, we got a couple comments in here. It's Ryan, is it not?
Yeah, Ryan said, guess who's back? What's up, Pastor Reagan? Brother Zach. Attack.
Appreciate you being in here, Ryan.
He said JK can't be worse than Harris was last year.
Brother.
Oh, man. All that hype for nothing, right? All that hype for nothing.
I'm not going to lie, though. Denver Harris picked me off in NCAA 25. No cap.
Where's he at now? I don't even know where he's at, dude.
UTSA.
Well, that makes sense.
Texas San Antonio.
That makes sense.
And I think I'm playing. It's with ECU, and I'm pretty sure I played with them, and he picked me off. So
yeah, dude, that's the thing we haven't talked about a lot.
This is a video game. I was like, this is a video game.
We've NCAA football's out now. I've got NCAA football. You've got NCAA football. I'm working currently on a dynasty with the Memphis Tigers, and first I'm playing All-American, so it's been a little difficult.
Dude.
My first year lost 2 games, but was able to make it to the college football playoff with the Memphis Tigers. Because of the little auto bid with the conference championship. Accidentally auto simmed my first playoff game against Michigan, and they beat me by 3 on the auto sim. So I was like, that sucks. So now I'm working on season number 2 as the head coach of the Memphis Tigers. And so far we have 1 loss on the season, lost to Oregon in the opener.
Golly.
I scheduled it. I mean, you can make your own schedules. So, bro, I scheduled Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson. Like, I moved us from the American Conference to the ACC, and it's going pretty good. We've lost 1 game on the season. We're headed to the ACC championship versus Florida State, and we'll see how it goes.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. I love it. I really do. But, man, it is way harder than the old NCAA. It's certainly harder.
Yeah. It's a lot more difficult. The kicking is like you have to be a surgeon.
I've actually gotten pretty good at it.
Okay.
I've hit a 44, 41, and I think a 45 in my dynasty.
I've gotten a little bit better at it as well, but then you just kind of have those times where like you finger slip and then it's just like bing. Like I think I had a PAT that I missed on the last game because I just finger slipped and shanked it. Anyways,
it happens. Yep. They certainly made it more difficult, which is okay. It's a little bit more realistic. So, it is what it is. All right, Zach. Recruiting weekend. Do we need to hit a quick break first, or do we need to slide right into?
Let's go ahead and hit a quick break, and then when we come back, we can cover all things recruiting, especially with this weekend coming up.
5-Star Hero, your intro and outro music for the Tigers Avenue show. They ain't ready for that LSU. Go check out all his other music on all the major platforms. Don't forget to follow him on Instagram at Saints Anthem and at Twitter at One Nation Doty. Don't forget to check out his Facebook page for all his Saints and LSU merchandise. Can't get any better than Sarah Klein Stevens, attorney at law. Her firm focuses on the needs of the elderly and maintaining their dignity throughout the process. Here for you, Here for your family. Sarah Klein Stevens, attorney at law.
All right back in it here for recruiting preview this coming weekend. Zach will be right back. Had to go take care of something real quick. He will be right back, so no worries there. So LSU, obviously, as of lately, has been as hot as they could possibly be, I think, on the recruiting trail. I mean, this staff, I mean, part of it is the staff, the defensive staff that has been brought in is far better recruiting and has a great history of recruiting phenomenal players. So credit to this defensive staff who has been putting in the work to improve this defense drastically from a personnel perspective. And they have done so. I mean, specifically, we talked about last show on Monday about Corey Raymond, and man, the class that he is putting together, fantastic, man. I mean, absolutely fantastic. You have Pickett, and you have Kate Phillips, and you could add more even this weekend, and that's who we're going to talk about here in a second. But man, hot as they could possibly be. Obviously, Tyler out of South Carolina as well, the tight end. They got him as well just a couple weeks ago. And man, LSU has a real chance to end with the number one class in the country. And it really starts this weekend. If you want to finalize with the number one team in the country, which I don't think that's really coaches. I don't ever think that's like their goal. Obviously, they want to recruit the best of the best and bring great players in. But I don't know if necessarily it's ever their goal to be number one. Because obviously there's a lot of scouting and analysis that goes into these things. So sometimes, man, you see 3-star players that you're like, man, this guy's got size and blah, 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 and maybe he's just being overlooked. And you bring in a 3-star and he turns out to be a superstar, right? Or a 2-star. I mean, Justin Jefferson is a perfect example of that. So the number one class is not always the goal. It's about bringing in players that you need to fit your team that can best benefit your team. But obviously getting 5-star players at the top tier are obviously a great thing to bring in. And having the number one class is a great thing as well. So this weekend, Anding is going to be committing from Ruston, the DB out of Ruston, Louisiana. And Jonah Williams, I mean, the big fish in this recruiting cycle that's left, it seems to be Jonah Williams. And if LSU can pull off getting Jonah Williams, it will be quite an epic day for LSU. I really want to wait for Zach to get in here to discuss the Jonah Williams situation. I want to get his thoughts, and I think we're both going to kind of share our ideas on Jonah Williams. But obviously, Jonah Williams is the number one safety in the country, 5-star player. He is not only a phenomenal safety, but he is a phenomenal baseball player. And it's with players like this, when it comes to football, he's a double sport athlete who can also play baseball. A thing you have to consider is the MLB draft. This guy could very easily, if he wanted to, probably sign to the MLB draft the next summer. So if you want to get this guy to come play football for you, and baseball, obviously, inevitably, I think NIL is going to play a major role in Jonah Williams. Now, that may not be the deciding factor, but it certainly, I think, is going to be a major point of this recruitment. Man, there is some big time players when it comes to NIL. The big three are Texas, Texas A&M, and LSU. And boy, Texas A&M certainly will spend a bunch of money in NIL trying to get players, and certainly could pay Jonah Williams any dollar amount that LSU is willing to offer him. But at the same time, I really like where LSU is in the NIL, scene. The LSU is really getting their things together when it comes to NIL. Welcome back, Zach. And I really like where LSU is right now in terms of NIL. And so, man, I think they could compete to get Jonah Williams. Zach, I'm talking about Jonah Williams and how NIL is certainly going to play a big part of this because he is such a good baseball player. The MLB draft could really, deter him just to go. He could be in the MLB draft this next summer. So NIL will play a major role. I don't think it's just like, hey, who's the highest bidder? I think it's going to be like, can you keep me from going to the draft? So that's going to play a major role. I like where LSU is right now. So with Zach, now that Zach's back, Anding right now, Zach, Anding out of Ruston, Louisiana. I'm very confident. It's coming down to LSU, Arkansas, and Texas, right? Is that correct? Isn't LSU, Arkansas?
I believe so.
And I'm pretty confident that LSU is going to land Anding on Saturday. Pretty confident that LSU is going to bring in another DB, another great Louisiana-bred DB. Corey Raymond knows what he's doing, man. And for all intents and purposes, for a while there, he was going to Texas. And LSU got in the mix, made an offer. And I think the reality is he really wanted LSU's offer. And then when LSU made that offer is when things started changing. And then it wasn't long after that he set a commitment date. So it kind of like the timing of everything kind of tips the scale on where you think he's going, right? I think it's LSU, Zach. Do you have any other thoughts about that? Are you pretty confident? LSU's going to get Anding.
Yeah, I'm also confident that LSU is going to get Anding. And you are correct. It's between Texas and Arkansas. Do we really even have to worry about Arkansas? Not really.
They got Tyson Foods.
And obviously, Texas, I think you're more scared about the Texas competition there with Jonah Williams. And so Anding, I will be shocked. I'll be shocked if it's not LSU for Anding. Now, as you mentioned, you may have already mentioned this, Reagan. So if you did, I apologize.
That's okay.
But you mentioned the NIL. Did you mention how Texas has missed on a lot of their top prospects in Texas?
I didn't mention that, but that is certainly something to think of.
So Texas has missed on, I think, their top 6 guys or something like that, top 5 or top 6 guys in Texas. So Jonah Williams for Texas is pretty much a must get.
Yeah.
And I am with you where I feel like I'm concerned that heading into, like, if you were to say a couple of months ago that Jonah Williams was trending Texas, I wouldn't have thought anything of it because for a long time it felt like it was going to be LSU, Texas A&M, and then Texas obviously came in late. A big part of that was the addition on the baseball side was I'm going blank. Nagel, the new Texas coach. Good grief. Why am I going blank?
Oh, Schlossnagle. Jim Schlossnagle.
Thank you.
Gotcha.
I wanted to say like Shad Nagel. Schlossnagle. With Texas adding Schlossnagle as their head coach, I think that is what has played a major factor in him adding Texas to the mix. I don't think it's I really don't think it's the football side of things. I think it's the baseball side of things and why Texas has come on strong here at the end. And obviously, you're going to have NIL opportunities, baseball and football, with both those teams. You would as well with A&M, and you would as well with LSU. But it seems like Texas is going to be a full go, all in chips type thing for Jonah Williams in this situation. So that concerns me. And I'll just be honest with you, Reagan. Me and you both talked about it before the show. I feel like it's going to be Texas for Jonah Williams, which will suck because you really felt confident with how long Jay Johnson has been recruiting Jonah Williams on the baseball side of things. Obviously, you felt confident with Corey Raymond coming to LSU and the job that Corey Raymond's done in recruiting the 2025 class, the defensive backs in the 2025 class.
Yep.
So I really feel like it's going to now come down to Texas and LSU. I don't feel like Texas A&M is much in the mix as we thought not long ago.
Right.
It's going to be between LSU, Texas. I think he ultimately picks Texas, which will be rough. But I would love the surprise. I would love the surprise of him picking LSU. If LSU is able to land Jonah Williams, holy cow, what a massive get. And I would say I wouldn't be completely shocked, but I would be somewhat surprised if Jonah Williams ends up picking LSU and the Tigers on Saturday.
Here's the good news, Zach, is LSU is in a position where it's not as desperate as Texas is. I will say that. So even though, like, you want Jonah Williams, you want the 5-star dual athlete, star player, like he's the big fish, like you want him, it won't be as big as of a blow as if he picks LSU. It's a much bigger blow to Texas. I mean, LSU right now has C.J. Jim McCoyley and Jace Thomas both committed at the safety position, and for Texas, I mean, they've got to have this guy. Like you were talking about, they've missed on several guys. LSU's not in a terrible position. I mean, LSU's sitting right now at like 24 commits, so we're not in a desperate spot as much as Texas is. To land this guy. LSU's landed their fair share of top athletes. Obviously, Bryce Underwood and Harlem Berry and DJ Pickett, all of those guys. And LSU's act, by the way, has 6 players, 6 that are the number 1 players in their state. 6. So LSU's putting together a phenomenal class. Ultimately, I think Jonah Williams picks Texas. But, Zach, you know what? Fong put in a prediction today for Texas. But Shea Dixon the other day told Moscona that he had his pick in for LSU. We'll see. We'll see. I'm not going to be totally disheartened if he picks Texas. I'm kind of expecting it. Just know, though, it's not as major of a blow if we lose him. If we land it, man, what a massive addition. If you land Jonah Williams, you're on your way to the number 1 recruiting class in the country. And if you add Anding, man, you may move up to 2. I'm not exactly sure of all the numbers on that, but either way, if you sign all the guys you have committed right now and you add Anding and Jonah Williams and then maybe a couple more, this is one of the best classes LSU will have ever put together.
Yeah.
That's crazy to say, but legitimately it'll be one of the greatest classes LSU's ever put together recruiting-wise. It's been phenomenal. Pretty excited about the recruiting side.
So to reiterate a little bit of what I was hitting at earlier about the guys that have left the state of Texas and committed elsewhere. DeCoria Moore, number 1 in the state. Obviously, LSU was in on him early, had an early commitment, decommitted. Yep. He's now an Oregon commit.
Right.
That's the number 1 player in the state in Texas. Devin Sanchez, Ohio State commit. Jonah Williams, to be seen.
Yep.
Ty Haywood, Alabama. Michael Fasusi, Oklahoma. Keelan Russell, Alabama. Khalil Lockett, Texas. So you have to go all the way down, and this is on three's rankings to number 7.
Yep.
Before
They just
Texas.
landed in. They just landed in.
And then even further, you have to go further down. After that, you have to go all the way down to 14 to where Texas landed a top prospect out of Texas. If you go look at, and by the way, on 3 has Jonah Williams as a 55% chance to commit to Texas. The other one, interestingly enough, is Oregon.
Yep.
I really don't think Oregon's in the mix there. But anyways, if you go
in the mix for a while, but
if you go to 247, you have Devin Sanchez, Ohio State, DeCory Moore, Oregon. This is how they have the lineup. Jonah Williams, which by the way, they have Jonah Williams picking between A&M and Oklahoma. Anyway, I think they're a little off there. On I think 247 is a little bit further off on that pick there. Keelan Russell, Alabama, Khalil Lockett, they had as number 5 in their Texas rankings. Again, going to Texas. So, yeah, Texas needs this one badly. We'll see how it plays out on Saturday, though.
Yep. Certainly. Ultimately, I think both of us think he's going to Texas. So be it if he does. If you land him, wow. So we'll see. Obviously, we'll recap the weekend on Monday and give you our thoughts on how it played out. But pretty confident that LSU will land Andy and we'll come out with another DB commit out of the state of Louisiana. Love those things that Corey is doing right now with the DB room. Really do. All right, Zach, I think we need to hit a quick break, right? Or do we just need to slide right into offense?
Let's go ahead and I'd say let's go ahead and slide right into offense. We've already taken one break, so let's go ahead and do it.
Man, so we talked about this a little bit already and touched on it. Zach, the offense has, in my opinion, the pieces to be a great offense. And I think we all know the one player that it's really going to hinge on, and that's Garrett Nussmeier. How is he going to be when the lights are turned on, the keys have been handed over to him, he's the guy, what's it going to look like? You know what, Zach? I mean, I am confident in him. I mean, he went out there against Wisconsin, threw over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, did throw an interception. But I think that Garrett Nussmeier can manage this offense very well. I don't think he's going to be elite. I think he can be good. I think he can settle in and be the commander of this offense and be really great. So, with that being said, Zach, what's your starting 11? It's really not hard, I don't think. The starting 11 is really not tough for the offense right now.
No, yeah, I think you kind of know who your starting 11 is going to be, but I'll get into this here in just a minute after I go through my starting 11. But I'll go through some questions that I want to ask you that I think a lot of fans are thinking about or want to kind of know. So obviously the starting 11, I mean, you're going to have Will Campbell at left tackle. You're going to have Garrett Dellinger at left guard. You're going to have DJ Chester at center. You're going to have Miles Frazier at right guard, and you're going to have Emory Jones at right tackle.
Yep.
Obviously, the quarterback's going to be Garrett Nussmeier. Your running back's going to be Josh Williams. Your number 1 receiver is going to be Kyron Lacey. I think C.J. Daniels is going to be your number 2 with Hilton kind of pushing that as well.
Yep.
And then you'll have other guys, like Xavier Thomas and Aaron Anderson. And then obviously, I think you're going to see Mason's going to be the guy at tight end, but I think you're going to see Kamorian Pimpton and Trey's Green get a lot of run at tight end as well. So, I mean, that's going to be your guys. How much do you see some of the freshman wide receivers? I don't know if you see them a whole lot. Obviously you'll see them in some late ball games if LSU's playing a non-conference opponent and just wiping the floor with them. You'll see some run there. But that's the offense. We know it's no surprise. That's who you're going to see out there. And I'm really excited about that starting 11. I mean, obviously we've discussed it ad nauseum. This offensive line is going to be arguably the best offensive line in the country. I don't think that's really a debate. If they're not the number one offensive line in the country, they're top three.
Yep.
So you're going to have to rely on the run game. The questions I want to ask you, Reagan.
Yep.
And I will chime in on this as well.
Okay.
And we've done this the last, or I've mentioned this or asked you about it the last 2 years. But I want to ask you these two questions. Okay.
Okay.
Number one, do you have a 1,000-yard receiver? And number two, do you have a 1,000-yard back? I think you do have a 1,000-yard receiver. I think Kyron Lacy is going to edge 1,000 yards. And I think you're going to have guys like Chris Hilton and CJ Daniels that are going to also probably be, 500 to 700 yard receiving. If you have another year where you have Kyron Lacy and CJ Daniels both sitting at 1,000 yards, and you have another year with two guys at 1,000 yards, that's going to be really impressive. I just doubt that is going to be the case this year because they're going to be so heavily relying on the run game. So I think, and I even me saying that I think Kyron gets to 1,000 is kind of like I'm not sure because I know what this offense is going to look like, and relying so heavily on the run game. So, maybe you have Kyron Lacy around 800 yards and you have the other guys around 500, 600, 400, somewhere in there, something like that. But I'm going to go ahead and say that I think Kyron Lacy clips 1,000 yards and is able to get there this season, which would be huge for him and just the job that he's done. Obviously, in these past couple of seasons, he's grown so much at LSU, and so we're excited for him to take that leap.
Yeah.
And the surprise could be that CJ Daniels, does it again this year. He did it at Liberty last year. How does he look in the SEC against SEC defensive backs? We're hearing a lot of awesome things out of camp that he is really impressive. We've heard other podcasters, other media people say how he is NFL talent. He's an NFL player. So do we see that, come to fruition with Kyron and CJ this year? Again, wait to be seen. The big question for me is, do you see a running back reach 1,000 yards? And I'm going to say no on that. I'm going to say no. I think you're going to have, as we know, running back by committee, and a lot of times that tends to take away that possibility of you featuring a main guy that's at 1,000 yards. I mean, we think about how good Logan Diggs was last year. Logan Diggs was so good for us last year. He was your go-to guy. He was your number one running back, and he didn't even eclipse, what was it? I don't even think he went over 700 yards.
Well,
I think it was 600.
Yeah. Yes, but also you got to think about, that wasn't our style of offense. Jaden Daniels was your running game.
Correct. And again, that's why I make the point about the wide receivers, is because you're gonna have to consider what this offensive play style is going to look like. And so, yes, I think we're going to be more run heavy. And if I'm going to go out there and say that I think that there's a running back that's going to eclipse 1,000 yards, I think it's going to be Caleb Jackson, because Caleb Jackson, I don't even think it's a debate. He's your most talented running back in that running back room. Yet, yes, Josh Williams is your most reliable, your most counted on running back, but Caleb Jackson is your most talented
100%.
running back. I mean, you think about back in 2012 when LSU had, I can't remember, was it Terrence McGee they had? I want to go back and look at that, Reagan, but I can't remember exactly which running back was ahead of Jeremy Hill. Yeah, and then Jeremy Hill just burst onto the scene, and he was the guy. Could you potentially have that this year where you have Josh Williams, who is ahead right now of Caleb Jackson, and you have more of a running back by committee approach, and then you have Caleb Jackson just burst onto the scene. It's like, okay, we have to feed this guy the ball because every time he touches it, he's gonna make a play. So that's going to be a question that I kind of a side question that LSU fans are going to be thinking about, especially as we head into the season. But I think it's a possibility for sure.
I'll be quite honest, Zach. Honestly, I think you would count Josh and Caleb as like 1A, 1B.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a good point.
I don't really see Caleb as a 2. Like, he's really not. I mean, John Emery is your 2, and Caden Durham is your 3. Really, Josh and Caleb are both going to probably get the same amount of snaps. So that's 1A, 1B. And I totally agree. I was going to say the exact same thing. If we have a back who has 1,000 yards, it's Caleb Jackson. And quite frankly, again, I don't want to just harp on this, but man, you think about the offensive line and the skill set that Caleb Jackson has. Like,
he's gonna have big running lanes, and then he's gonna come one-on-one with a DB, and he's gonna crush him.
and he's agile. He's agile.
I mean, when you think about the play against Mississippi State, everybody talks about the truck stick, right?
Yep.
But people forget about how he came off the edge and stiff-armed a dude before that.
Yep.
Stiff-armed a dude to the ground.
He's very talented, and that legitimately has put on 30 pounds more from a season before. That's unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. He's going to be fantastic. I'm very excited about Caleb. If we have a 1,000-yard backer, I think it's Caleb Jackson. And yeah, I think Kyron Lacey gets to 1,000 yards. When I say we're going to be a run first team, but I don't think we're going to be a unbalanced offense. I think we're going to have great balance in the offense to run the ball, throw the ball. So I think the chance for Kyron Lacey to hit 1,000 yards is certainly there. And there's no question, I think, that C.J. Daniels could certainly push for that as well. Like you said, he did it last year. And, dude, it's become apparent that Garrett Nussmeier and C.J. Daniels spent a lot of time together over the summer and whatnot, working together to build that chemistry. And it seems like they have created a great relationship and are really on the same page when it comes to things. And he's become a favorite target for Garrett Nussmeier. So really, really, really like Kyron, CJ as a 1-2 punch with Chris Helton as well. But, yeah, I think Kyron certainly can get over 1,000 yards. I really do.
I just went back and looked. That was the year we had Alfred Blue, Spencer Ware, Terrence McGee as well.
Loaded.
There were, and Kenny Hilliard. Hilliard.
Oh, loaded.
So, and Jeremy was the one that kind of came on top of all those guys. I mean, you had 5 running backs who all we remember and got a lot of playing time. And Jeremy was the one that came out on top. And kind of similar to this year. You've got Josh Williams, you've got Caleb Jackson, you've got John Emery, you've got the young talent in Caden Durham. So there's a lot of guys in that room, but could potentially Caleb have a Jeremy Hill type season this year. I think it's certainly doable.
I really think he could. So I'm excited, Zach, for this offense to see what it's like, to see how Joe Sloan works as a play caller. I'll reiterate this. I think he's done a great job from what we have seen in fall camp, catering this offense to the strengths of Garrett Nussmeier, catering this offense to the strengths of not just Garrett Nussmeier, but the team as a whole. And with that in mind, the ability to build Garrett Nussmeier and build his confidence as a starter as the guy. I think we've catered the offense to that. And Zach, the reality is we have seen what they've allowed us to see. There will be things in this offense that we have yet to see when it comes to game time.
Yeah.
On purpose, because they don't want all of their game film being out there from practice. You know what I'm saying? All their practice film being out there for USC and whoever to see. Come USC, we're going to see some things that have not been talked about and not been mentioned, that they are practicing when no media is around. So really excited to see kind of I feel like we've seen the foundation of the offense and certainly what could be the identity of the offense. And I really like it. I really, really like it. And I think that it is going to be very complementary to the defense. I really do. I think it will be complementary in the way that we play, because I think we're going to have long drives, sustaining drives, where we work the field, work the clock, time of possession. And then you have Blake Baker on the other side with a fresh defense, a defense that's able to rest because of that time of possession, that plays very physical, very aggressive. I think it's going to be very complimentary football. I think it is going to be a style of football that wears on teams, that wears them down. A defense that is biting at you all the time, attacking at you all the time, showing you fronts that are foreign and exotic, and they're coming at you and they're coming at you all the time. And then you flip the ball, and this offense is grinding you down. This offensive line is wearing you out. We're running the ball. We're running the ball. And then, boom, we run a bootleg, and Mason Taylor takes it 9 yards. And then we hit Kyron Lacey for 10. And then we hit C.J. Daniels for 15. You know, like it is a complementary style of football, what we've seen, and I'm very excited for it. I really am.
So another question I have, Reagan, and we can kind of do this in the wrap of the show. I know we're over. But another question, we've been mentioning Garrett Nussmeier. Where do you think Garrett Nussmeier lands as far as passing yards go this year? I mean, obviously, Jaden Daniels got very close to 4,000. Do you think Garrett can get close to 3,000 yards this season?
I think he certainly will get 2,500. I think Garrett will get 2,500, and I think he'll be pushing 3,000. I do.
So maybe like a 28,000, or excuse me, 2,800.
2,800. I wouldn't be surprised if he hit 3,000. I wouldn't. I mean, I don't think he's going to be pushing 4,000.
No.
But I would say in the range
28 to 3,200.
Lower 28 to 32. If it's better than we think, 35. I don't think it's going to be, any more than that. I mean, unless we're just shocked, unless we're just, he gets confident and everything clicks and he just gets on a roll. I think from what a reasonable perspective is, 28 to 32, I think is a good range for what to expect.
Yeah.
And I would say he has 16 to 22 touchdowns.
Yeah.
On the year.
I would agree with that. So we'll have to wait and see. A couple comments, Reagan, before we wrap up. Tyler Townsend is in here. Said, "What's up, guys?" We got Caleb back. He said, "I need to be on the podcast to talk about how Florida is winning the 2024 national championship. May the odds be ever in your favor, because the odds are not great, buddy."
Boy,
just kidding, Caleb. Caleb also said C.J. Daniels and Kyron Lacey are the next Tiger greats. All right. Appreciate
it. Honestly, I think they could be.
They could be. I mean, you think about the duos, the wide receiver duos that have come through LSU. You go all the way back to 2013 in the year that Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham had. Obviously, 2019 you had Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, and then obviously this past year you had Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. It just seems like LSU churns out. Whenever it happens, it's a duo of wide receivers
and
that have great years.
Quietly good duos in there every now and then. Little like DJ Chark and Russell Gage.
Yeah.
Combos like that. So
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And we think about, the year Justin Jefferson had in his sophomore year.
Yeah.
in 2018 as well. Caleb, dude, you're welcome to come and join the show. We might have to have him on for the Florida preview. That's what I told him. He texted me after our last podcast. Said, bro, you're welcome to come on the Florida preview, bro. So that'd be an interesting show to say the least.
Would love to have you, man. Zach, when we get back from the break to wrap things up, you got to stay in because there's one more thing we have to briefly discuss. So
okay,
we will discuss it right after this.
Make sure to go follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X. If you're watching on YouTube, click off, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. We broadcast all of our shows live on YouTube, Facebook, and X.
Right back at it to wrap things up here in the Avenue. Zach, briefly, we got to have one more prediction. I don't, Brian Kelly's been doing these things a little bit differently, so I don't know if we're having 2 number 18s or 1 number 18.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's going to be 1.
Is that announcing soon? I would imagine that's announced.
Probably tomorrow. I'm expecting it tomorrow.
Okay.
Brian Kelly said in his press conference on Wednesday to expect it within the next 48 hours. We didn't get it today, so tomorrow's probably the day. Zach, I think there is one guy that is a clear standout for number 18.
Well, before we do 18, I think we need to go ahead and knock out number 7. We already know who number 7 is going to be. It's going to be Will Campbell.
Will Campbell, yeah. It is Will Campbell.
So the big question is, who is going to be number 18?
Yeah, and I don't know if he's doing 1 or 2. If he does 2, I have the guys in mind. If he does 1, I think I know who it's going to be. And I think it's going to be Josh Williams.
Yeah.
If it's 1, it's Josh Williams. If it's 2, it's Josh Williams, and I think Greg Penn. That's my guess.
The only other name that I can think of that you could potentially go to is maybe a guy like Jacoby and Guillory or maybe a Major Burns. Maybe.
Yeah.
Like those guys that have been with been with LSU their entire careers, have stuck it out. Jacoby and Guillory, I think is he a 4th year or 5th year guy? Major Burns, 5th year guy. So, and then obviously Josh Williams, I think he's on a 6th year. Josh Williams on a 6th year. So, but I fully agree with you. If it's gonna be one guy, I think it's gonna be Josh Williams. Yeah. Who knows? He may surprise us.
And honestly, I don't think it's gonna be Greg Penn because he's wearing number 3 for Greg Brooks. So I don't think it's going to be Greg. I think it will be Josh Williams. So, and I think that's obvious. I don't really think of any other guy who could deserve it. He's a veteran. He was a walk-on who earned his spot. Who's going to be a starter this year in his 6th year at LSU?
And he's a leader.
Have his best season. Yes, it's an easy pick. It really is. He does everything right all the time. Mr. Reliable, Josh Williams. All right, guys. It's been a great show. Sorry to keep y'all over a little bit longer. I don't think y'all mind. But appreciate your comments and being involved. Ryan, Tyler, what's up, man? And Caleb as well. Appreciate all y'all coming in here and discussing and commenting. We always appreciate it. We'll see you next time after the weekend. College football, Zach, is this weekend. Florida State, Georgia Tech to kick things off in Ireland, Dublin, Ireland, this weekend at 11 a.m. Looking forward to some college football. We'll discuss everything this next Monday here on the Tigers Avenue Show. 5-Star here, take us out. Peace.
Who that 5-star? Who that 5-star? And the LSU Tigers.